Thanks for your video, and it was really cool for you to send the foresight data from the GC2 and HMT that you had access to. I'll talk about your data here in a minute. The first thing that I wanted to mention within your video, I was able to look at it pretty closely, and there's a couple things I want to talk about, but the first thing is going to be your grip. Your grip on your bottom hand, your right hand, is a little bit underneath. We call that a strong grip, and that's going to affect where you put the pressure on the back of the shaft, and where you put the pressure on the back of the shaft affects a little bit on how the shaft rolls when it starts to get really fast, if you want to think of it that way. And when you have the hand underneath a little bit and you put the pressure on the back of the shaft that's a little more underneath, and you push on it and it releases, the face tends to get closed, which is one of the reasons why your ball has a tendency to curve left a lot, big draws. The other reason is that thanks to your foresight data, we saw that the swing path was anywhere from 6 to 9 degrees in to out. A little bit too much, so we're going to work on your face to path today with a couple of things. So first of all, with your grip, I want to see if you can take your bottom hand grip and roll it a little bit more on top. A rule of thumb is if you could put a T in between the crease of your hand and hold it there, and then put that bottom hand on that T, should be somewhat, pointed up the middle, not off to the right. That'll be just kind of a key for you. But if you could just roll your bottom hand over to the left, about 10 or 15 minutes, I think that's all you really need to do. Most important things coming here. So I noticed that in your swing, as you were making the motion on the way back, a couple things were happening. First of all, in your takeaway, I think things looked pretty good. You didn't do too much offline. You made a very smooth motion away from the golf ball. But from here, we had a little bit of issue with the shaft and the club face. So this is where the club face started to get a little bit open. We had the backswing going this way a little bit. So it kind of looks not too bad when you look at it on video. You can take a look at this video here and it doesn't look all that bad. However, there's some things that are out of place. So one thing I want you to try and think about is this left elbow of yours. All right? So as you're taking this club back this way, your left elbow gets a little bit higher, and it gets higher than your right elbow. And when your left elbow raises up and it gets higher than your right one, you can see that the butt of the club rises straight up. And as the butt of the club rises up, it kind of flattens out the shaft. And it doesn't give me a whole lot of inward motion to this hand and this arm. So I want you to try to feel as though that you're taking the club away your normal way, but then feel as though that this lead or left elbow, this front elbow of yours, stays low as it goes around the corner. And you're going to find that your hands are going to go a little bit more around you without it feeling too awkward. So that's the first thing. So we're going to take grip on top. Left elbow stays low as it goes around. It might feel like your left elbow stays under your right elbow a little bit if the right elbow wants to come up. All those things are going to be better to keep the shaft more in a straighter line this way, rather than having the left elbow go high, putting the right elbow underneath, pushing the hands out this way, flattening the shaft. And now from here, we can't really power that very well. So we've got those motions on the way back, and on the downswing, okay, we're going to talk about your hips a little bit, and we can kind of see it here. So this hip right here, all right, you can see it there. We can see that this hip is there, but because I've got some turn, we can see that my front hip is more out this way. So from a down the line view, you can see my back hip is here, but my front hip is out there. So we've got some displacement there. Well, I want you to try to have the feeling that this back hip stays where it is, and the front hip moves down and back to meet it. Okay, let me rephrase that. If I had my back hip right here at the top of the swing, which I think you do a really good job of, right, and I have this post or this wall or this spot here, I want my left hip to come back to get to that spot too. And it might feel like you go down a little bit, it might feel like you stay level, I'm not quite sure, but that feeling of being able to go from the top of your swing with your right hip turned back high, I think all that stuff's great. And then from there, the left hip's going to go back to join it. All right, from there, that's where I want you to feel like all you're really going to do from here is just stand up into your finish. I think that your finish position's really good, but when you had the club out and flat this way, as you came into the golf ball, because it's out there, the way to power a club that's not far enough back there is to kind of stand up. So you would stand up this way, and you could see that both these hips would move up, your knees would get longer, your legs would get longer, the club would come down, and all of a sudden that club's going to come down well under plane and swing into out. And that's why we saw the swing paths of 6 to 9. So we want to try and get the feeling that the right hand grip is more on top. As you take the club back, you're trying to feel like the left elbow stays low, and then as the left hip goes back to meet the right hip, go ahead and finish your swing. And I think that if you can find that type of a pattern, you're going to start to see the ball start to fly a little differently. And we're going to, because the face to path isn't going to be so closed so often. So I recommend some practice swings. I'm not just going to leave you with that. I want to give you some more things on how to move and how to make your motions. One of the things I want you to think about is that because you're making different mechanical moves in your swing, it's going to feel, I don't know, slower, whatever, or heavier maybe, but definitely the timing and the tempo of your swing has to change. So if you made your previous swing in a tempo or a rhythm that was like tick tock, and now we're trying to make a longer, more dramatic swing, it might not be that tick tock tempo or rhythm or timing. You might feel as though that this is really, really long and dramatic to get up here, and then you've got an even another step in order to get your hip into the right spot so that you can swing all the way to your finish. So don't worry so much about it feeling the same way as it did before in terms of the rhythm. It's going to feel different. It might feel like it's a very different swing for now, but we're trying to change the way that you apply your gas pedal to the swing. So if your normal gas pedal at the time that you gave it was the reason for your speed, but also the reason the club went offline, your gas pedal and your steering wheel was the same thing, and we don't want to have that happen. I want you to try to feel as though that you're making a full motion swing at 70% of what you feel your power is until we start to develop maybe where a different gas pedal is going to be. So here's your practice. I want you to do this 10 swings at a time for as many sets as you feel like you can. You don't need a golf ball. So with the grip in the right spot, I want you to feel as though that the left elbow stays low all the way to here, that the left hip goes back to meet the right hip, and then swing into your finish. Okay? So it's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And I think that if you can tackle that in reps of 10 and take a break and do it again in sets of reps of 10, you can really get a better feeling when it's time to hit the golf ball. It'll also make your bucket of balls last a little longer.